Good morning, wherever you are. We're streaming live from the HODL Report, and we got to figure this out. So, as always, every single time we go to stream, there's always going to be some technical glitch, some technical issue. As I opened up the coffee this morning, the whole thing exploded in my face as well. But I did manage to get some and make some decent quality espresso. So, but with everything else, I had to delete some software that I loaded yesterday that was corrupting my camera. So, took care of that issue, and we should be pretty solid here. So, hey, Annalise George, morning. How's it going? First one in the chat so far. Yeah, appreciate that. If you want to tweet it out that we are live, logged in a couple minutes later than anticipated due to some technical glitches. So let me see what we've got here, and we'll get some people in the stream. Josh Lynn, what's up? Melbourne, Australia. Man, I love the following that we're getting over in Australia. It's absolutely outstanding. So Ed, how's it going, man? Just going to pull up this stream here right quick. Make sure everything is functioning copaesthetically. So let's see what we've got. All right, cool. All right, that's awesome. It's always good to see the stream working. So there we go. Hopefully you guys, while you're over in Australia, so what is it, 12 hours ahead, so it's evening time over there. You can still drink espresso in the evening, right? So I'd highly recommend grabbing a good quality espresso. And Michael, what's up? Philippines. What part of the Philippines? Probably never know it, but my dad's actually from Manila. My stepdad. So yeah, so anyhow, we go through all sorts of different coffees, and my preference 100% is espresso. I can't drink American drip coffee, can't stand it. It's too weak, doesn't taste good. Typically the freeze dried stuff is absolute trash. So you got to get good quality espresso. You go out to some of these places and they try to serve you espresso, and the quality of it, you can tell it seems like they took regular coffee and tried to make some espresso out of it, and it's just it's not the same thing. So you're better off making it at home. So I have people that travel often and come to visit from overseas for work. So I make sure that they bring high quality Italian roast espresso over here. So, man, I haven't been to Melbourne yet, so my plan at some point here, I have to get to Australia, New Zealand. Haven't been to either yet, and so that's definitely on our list of priorities. I'm just avoiding with a passion that long flight. So the flights over to India were brutal enough, so I can't imagine going to Australia. It's still going to be like 23, 24 hours of total travel time, maybe a little bit more depending on layovers and such. So but I do have to get there. So Ormoc City over in the Philippines, very cool. 1 o'clock in the UK, so pretty much all you guys, it's ready for you can go grab a Guinness, grab your favorite beer, get an espresso, wine, scotch, whiskey, whatever it might be. Over here, we're pretty much just starting the day. I guess you could put some whiskey in your coffee if you want. Forget the cinnamon. Yeah, just put a little dabble of whiskey if that's your thing. So two coffees that I like. I'm just talking while people log in. So Segfredo is awesome, and that it's almost impossible to get Segfredo over here in the United States. I found it on Amazon, but it's not the same product and we get commercial grade espresso roast from Italy that normally you can only get in the coffee shops. So that makes a huge difference. And so I settle on Lavazza, and Lavazza, you know, it's still a pretty decent coffee. It's not that bad. No, not Lavazza. Sorry, Illy. We get Illy. So then there's different versions of Illy espresso. You got the red pack, you get the black pack, then you got the pre-ground. I always like grinding our beans, you know, but that's how it goes. So we end up we have to get what we get at this point. So awesome. Yeah, whatever. If you guys are new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. If you want to make sure, you know, listen first. Then if you like what you hear, hit the notification bell, and you'll be notified every time we post a new video. And in the meantime, if you can do this, if you can tweet it out, that'd be awesome. Hit the thumbs up button on the way in, on the way out, and we'll kick this off. So it's a lot to talk about this morning. Normally we get a nice group on Saturday mornings, some good stimulating conversation, and we got some great things to talk about today. So want to go over, as the thumbnail and the subject title highlights, I want to talk a little bit about, we're going to talk a little bit about multi-hop. I want to talk about banks using XRP, and there's just some things that have been coming out lately that I believe could, it's a little bit of FOMO that's being spread, and in this space, I believe there's so much going on that, you know, we don't have to read between the lines. You know, we just have to sit back and see the progression that's taking place, and not try to put words into other people's comments that are in the space, so to speak, and it'll make more sense as I get into it. I want to talk a little bit about crypto sanctions, and there's just so much to go through. So, you know, definitely looking forward to all of that. I'm gonna send a quick note over to DNI, see what's going on over there for his edification. So let me just do that. And we'll kick it off. So that's it. I gotta pull my, got him 1 second. I gotta pull my stream up. I like monitoring it just to make sure the YouTube data to monitor these streams is almost useless. So it doesn't work efficiently. And if you just look at OBS, OBS doesn't really tell you anything. So it's always good to have a secondary stream going, do an audio check. I have to do a speed check, Wi-Fi check. There's so much to do on the way in. So you guys didn't come here to hear me talk about Wi-Fi streams and coffee, you know, in the morning. So we've got a decent group in here so far. I think it's important that we get started. So here's what we're gonna focus in on. Like I said, we want to focus in on a few key topics this morning. Definitely want you guys to jump in, participate, ask some questions, give some feedback. If you don't like what I'm saying and disagree, let me know you disagree. That's fine. I like the thumbs down as much as I like getting thumbs up. It just means people are engaged in the conversation. So that part's important. Now, let's start this off by focusing in on sanctions in the digital asset space and the crypto space. And I think that this is important because there's so much going on in the world right now. And within this development, and as you know, being in the US, I'm hyper focused on the impact of digital asset and blockchain on the United States, while observing everything that's happening globally. You know, we have to make sure that we're you know, staying on top of, staying in touch with the trends in the marketplace, and at the same time, we have to make sure that what our government is doing is really for the benefit of the growth of the digital asset space. So, yo, what's up, Dan Ski? Good to see you on. So, let's talk a little bit about some current event that's been happening right now. Obviously, Everybody knows that there's a little bit of tension right now over in Iran. Iran has been a sore spot for many, many years. It's not new. As much as people want to put a focus on the activity over in Iran being new, it isn't. If you guys remember, under the Obama administration, Iranian Navy attempted to board a U.S. naval ship, and they surrounded it. It caused some hostility, some tension. They supposedly kidnapped, or not kidnapped. They supposedly were holding the crew of this U.S. ship that happened to be off course. It was a really bizarre incident. I'm sure D and I can really enlighten on the process of why a military ship randomly ends up off course, which is almost impossible, in a location that puts them in a direct position to be then held at gunpoint by Iranian military, and it just doesn't make any sense. But so my point is that tensions have predated Trump. They've predated Obama. Iran has engaged in many as far as the government, and I don't want to draw attention to the people of Iran. The Persian people are amazing people, but let's draw attention to the bad actor state, which is the government, which unfortunately has ultimate control over the populace. And we saw an attempt in Iran to overthrow. This was a number of years ago under Obama, and unfortunately the U.S. government sat back and was quiet at that point, and many great people lost their lives over in Iran as a result. But I don't want to talk about that either. My point here is that over the past year, we've seen Iran and we've seen other countries talk about utilizing the digital asset platform in order to circumvent sanctions that are put on them by the world body. And think about if you look at it from a macro perspective, from a state perspective, how does one state or a group of states in the world let another state who they look at as a bad actor, creating havoc in specific regions of the world, whether it's through their financial support of terrorism, or if it's through the manipulation of a currency, or if it's through the demoralizing of a population and the destruction thereof of their own country. How does the world stage deal with those types of actors? So really, there's two ways that you can deal with states, with countries. You can put through economic sanction, or you can take military action against those countries. So we don't want to see in every scenario a country jump into military activity, because again, we always have to think about the people on the street. Now, military action should always be utilized as a last resort, unless that country is at a point, at a tipping point, where they are threatening the region through the buildup of weaponry, through the utility of weapons, or whatever it might be. Or if it's even through the invasion of other countries. Unfortunately, the military option is on the table and has to be utilized. Now, I don't want to get into that conversation either, but my point with all of this is that with Iran as a bad actor state in many scenarios, they have overstepped their boundaries multiple times over the years, and there's good reason to believe that they engage in subterfuge, that you can't hold them at face value for any of the negotiations or any of the agreements that are put in place. It's been proven time and time again. But again, not even focusing on that. The point with all of this is that there are economic sanctions that have been levied and placed by the world stage on Iran. Now, as part of that conversation, Iran has talked about the opportunity or the possibility of utilizing digital asset to circumvent sanctions. We saw that same conversation in Venezuela. We saw them attempt the crypto currency and force other countries to use it to buy gas. That country is an absolute disaster. But now Iran, making that same move and making that same attempt. What's amazing about all of this is that we saw for the first time a digital asset cryptocurrency exchange actually ban Iran. So and we've seen countries that have forced crypto exchanges to not deal in their countries, China, India, and elsewhere. But seeing a crypto exchange that has actually stopped trading, and I believe we saw that with Binance. I believe they had stopped trading somewhere, and I have to go back through the news. Things change so rapidly, but here we see let me pull it up here. Here it is. It's called Local Bitcoins is the exchange, and so this was I read the article over here on CoinDesk, but this was just a couple days ago, May 24th. Today is the 25th, so that was yesterday. I'm completely lost track of the days over this past week. It's been super hectic. But Local Bitcoin actually shut down all services to Iranian-based users. Now this, have they come out and said it? They haven't said exactly why they're shutting them down, although most likely, and even according to this article, it states specifically that U.S. sanctions are almost, certainly the cause of them pulling out of the Iranian market. Now, this is a Helsinki-based peer-to-peer exchange. So it's interesting that they need to abide, all countries and their companies that are part of the world stage here, that are subject to counter response if they attempt to circumvent specific sanctions that are agreed on by a group of countries. So if this group agrees that we're going to place a sanction because that's the best thing to do from their opinion, from a state level, I'm not talking about from an individual level, but from a state level, that's their first attempt at getting that country in line with their thought process without utilizing military action. Again, and D and I would probably argue this, right or wrong, whichever side you want to be. Chinese bamboo, WB. But this is really, again, the first instance in Iran that and maybe it's not the first, but it's definitely not going to be the last that we're going to see these types of things happening. So this is a cryptocurrency abiding by the sanctions that are being placed. So trying to circumvent, again, with digital asset, they're not going to have direct access to an exchange, and it's really important. If you get the world at large on board with something, you can definitely move countries into compliance at the world stage. Now, obviously, you can look at it from different perspectives, but just to not belay this topic, but Iran, as a major supporter and financier of global terrorism for years and years and years, there is no excuse to say that the Iranian regime, has a point in their activity. So there's no purpose in their financing of terrorism over the years, and the destabilizing of specific Middle Eastern governments for the purpose of manipulation and control. So that is a bad actor state, and everybody has to agree with that definition as a rogue state. And if you look at also then internally the way they manipulate and control their people, then it ramps things up a little different. It's really astonishing. So then we can even step into Venezuela, and I got some really crazy stories that came out of Venezuela. just recently, and I'm gonna have to share this because to me it's just it's mind-boggling. It really is mind-boggling. Before I do that, let me take a pause here. Let's take a look at some of the people that popped in. Want to make sure we acknowledge everyone as they are commenting, as we're participating in this conversation, and try to get people a little bit more engaged. Again, if you disagree with me, throw up a comment, because I'm not afraid of disagreement. I actually appreciate it, because that's the only way we learn from each other. I know in the current political atmosphere in the United States, with these ultra-left, socialist, whiny, little kids that want to yell and scream, and then they don't want to listen to anything anybody else has to say. It's so piss poor of an attitude. It's so important to understand both sides, especially if you don't understand the other side. Why not sit and listen and learn, and and that's how we get along. So anyhow, I don't mean to rant on that. XRP Carolina, driving and listening, man, I appreciate that. That's awesome. It's always great, to listen to what you want to listen to. It's you've got so many choices. You get into the car, you've got your XM Sirius radio, you've got a multitude of channels, and then being able to tune in and listen to podcasts. And man, I appreciate everybody that jumps in on an early morning or afternoon in Australia, the Philippines, where UK, where you guys are tuning in from. I appreciate all your time. It's awesome. And then we've got Noel over here from Dublin. We've got XRP Bananas in from Ireland as well. So this is great. Jerry Hall, what's going on? Local BTC is a Craigslist. Yeah, but so it's a form of a Craigslist. It's a peer-to-peer. So as a peer-to-peer, they're allowing individuals. That's a circumvention of the marketplace and of the sanctions. So going through an exchanges, I guess, would be a little bit easier to place a heavy focus on as a country, to say, what, Coinbase, you're not going to deal in Iran if you want to keep working and having a presence in the United States. But that's a good point. But still, even as a peer-to-peer, even as a quote-unquote Craigslist, they're shutting down the circumvention. So Maryland, that's a long ways away. Hope all is well up there. Norway, Anders in from Norway. Fantastic. I've been, I like Norway. You know what? Norway's a great place. I spent, some good time traveling over there, starting over in Bergen, and we, instead of going north, I really wanted to go north. We ended up going south. But what a beautiful place. Holy cow. Every corner, you don't even have to really think about where you're going. Just start driving, and you're going to see, crazy stuff all over, just waterfalls and the fjords and just everything. It's unbelievable. So, Washington, Annalise, that's awesome. Fantastic. We're planning another trip. I used to travel a ton when I was working, but now we're planning a trip, and we're trying to decide exactly where to go. And we're contemplating right now, different locations, and but been to Norway, so we got to figure something else out. But it's crazy. I had a friend, he was visiting, and he was saying, he said, I can't believe you got, you're always traveling internationally. What about the United States? And granted, I've been to a lot of places in the US too, but not so much as a tourist. And there's really a phenomenal amount of things to see in the United States. And he's right. Taking advantage of, the views and the places to visit in the U.S. are just outstanding. And so that's something that, Devon, hey, thanks. That's great. So there's always going to be a little bit of overlap, Devon, and so that's great. D and I was on this morning streaming, and it's good. So I definitely want to come to Australia. We just got to figure that out. If we come to Australia, we'll have to spend like 3 weeks over there. So, oh, that's right, Jerry Hall. You're in Costa Rica, man. That's one of the reasons that, you know, I've just hesitated going down to Latin America for South America, you know, is mainly from a security perspective, depending on some of the areas I've wanted to be in. I've traveled through, again, work-wise, traveled through Mexico and Brazil, and I've seen some really bad areas, but obviously some really nice areas too. But I know there's some amazing places down in Latin America, and so that's definitely been on our list as well. Like from a tourist perspective, I want to get down to Peru. Costa Rica would be great too. Sorry, I kind of got sidetracked in this conversation. I don't want to take up too much time on just talking about this. I've got a ton of things to go through. So, Mr. B, breaking 40 is harder than taking down the wall in Game of Thrones. we need something. But you know what? You know what this shows us is that XRP is proving its stability. So, and that is, you know, so important, you know. Yeah, no, I agree, Jerry. You know, that definitely the news has it wrong outside of, you know, maybe Venezuela. So let me just throw this tidbit in. I just think it's important to share, you know, and you know, I know quite a few people from Venezuela. I know people that travel to Venezuela. Now it's almost impossible to get to Venezuela via direct flight. But you know, a friend of mine was down there recently. You know, his mother had passed away, but she was in the hospital when he had gone down there, and they ended up, you know, with power outages that were pretty extreme, and you know, and they had a full power grid a full grid power outage for about 3 days, 3 days straight with nothing. No Wi-Fi, no access to anything. Once your batteries died, 3 solid days. Now he said, if you go and you need gas, you're waiting for an entire day to get gas and gas lines. And this is coming from a country that used to be a major producer and exporter of gas. Now the population sit around and actually have to wait. So wait in line. So it's insane. You know, and I'm going to do another topic on Venezuela here, you know, so I think it's really important. DNI, what's up, man? I was talking about you earlier to get some feedback and comments, so, but that's all right. You have to go back and watch. Michael Metzner, what's going on? Glad to see you on. So, all right, let's see here. Let me go back to topic at hand and kind of get through this. There's some important stuff. So now to the next point. Now, when we're engaged with Congress and listening, again, focused in the U.S., you know, some of the FUD, some of the misinformation, some of the misunderstanding in the digital asset space is that cryptocurrency is used by or used primarily by the criminal elements within society. Now, digital asset, you know, obviously has been tapped into and has been used by criminals. Obviously, you know, you can't avoid that fact. Fiat currency, on the other hand, has been utilized for money laundering, racketeering, theft, and every other type of criminal intent known to man since the beginning of fiat currency. So if digital asset has only been around now for 9 years and fiat's been around for a couple thousand years, I would have to say that it's safe to say that fiat is the preferred method of movement of financing or whatever, you know, in a criminal endeavor. Fiat currency for the most part goes untraceable, and there's ways that they try to engage in to launder the money through and have it just kind of disappear into the system. Now, obviously that goes on when there is money laundering taking place. Then the powers that be can find ways to trace them and track them. If they don't do that, obviously they see all the other criminal activity going on. But fiat currency is by far, on the top of the list of this criminal intent. Now, digital asset comes into play. As we all know, digital asset through the blockchain is transparent and trackable. For the fudsters and politicians sitting, or the media fudsters and the politicians who are sitting in Congress, what they have to understand is that digital assets are the wave of the future. What they have to understand is that criminals are going to be criminals regardless of what tool is in their hand. They're still going to be a criminal, and it's not the tool that is and creates criminal intent. It's the individual that wields the tool, which we could make that same argument for weapons. That gun sitting on a table isn't going to do anything on its own until you put it into the hand of a criminal with ill intent. Then that tool will be used for criminal action. Now, the same thing can be said for digital assets. And again, fiat currency, paper money, can easily be filtered into the system and hidden and isn't 100% traceable. Digital asset, again, on the other hand, is a little bit more traceable and trackable, and won't be the preferred methodology of criminals to move money. And the point, with all of this is that, with all of that happening, and yes, we'll still see criminals again. They're going to use the tools at hand. And here we have Europol was on, for the past year or so, had been tracking what they called here. This was an interesting article. I pulled it up on CCN, and then I also had something. I had it from Europol. Here it is. So this is from the Europol website. They actually did a press release a couple days ago on the 22nd. They said this is the first law enforcement action of its kind against a cryptocurrency mixer service. So what the mixer service did, they're basically mixing all the digital assets together, and then they kind of move them out from there. So they try to make it almost impossible to trace the end point of where they're going. And make it extremely difficult to track the endpoint. So that was the intent. However, Europol, after over a year, and actually just a year of tracking and investigation, shut them down. So they saw that they, over the past year, this mixer group mixing all these cryptocurrencies moved about $200 million worth of digital asset in this past year, which was approximately 27,000 Bitcoins. So this organization, and it wasn't on the Europol press release, so I'm not sure where CCN found their information, but they said here, I'm trying to find the exact statement. I thought it was interesting on how much money these guys made. Let me see. Here, here's another statement that the total turnover of darknet markets amounts to approximately $800 million a year. So it's really, at the end of the day, it seems large, but it's a drop in the bucket considering, everything else that goes on. Oh, here it is. So the portal, according to some of the reports that CCN had, were profiting about $600,000 a month. So they were profiting about 75 Bitcoins every single month from their mixing service. Now, this was primarily targeting users in the United States, Germany, and the Netherlands. And those are the ones they were able to trace. Obviously, there are a lot of others that will use a VPN that will go untraceable. But, the point with all of this is that, as much as a criminal, wants to utilize a digital asset, it leaves a trail. It leaves cookie crumbs. And with those cookie crumbs in that trail of these addresses, Europol or any of these agencies can then go backtrack, and they'll be able to track them down and shut them down. So I think that's it's interesting overall. So all right, let's see what we got here. Yeah, Any feedback, comments on this? Devon, I don't think criminals used many checks. No, criminals are definitely not using checks. And you can almost say that the digital asset is, almost like a check, right? But could you imagine, if they're using their checkbook? That'd be interesting, right? That'd be pretty funny. 90% of dollar bills in the U.S. have, that's true too. RTB, you backtrack that. It's insane. But there are, they have come out and said that. And now I was reading a report that our phones are actually, not our phones, our credit cards, I don't know how this happens, our credit cards are actually dirtier than money, than cash, than paper money. I don't know how that's possible, but that's what they say. So, what's up, Jim? Watching from the YMCA. Man, if I could put you on, you can start singing. Hopefully you're doing a good workout. I did hear AT&T is accepting digital asset for payment through a third-party service, same third-party service that Ohio is using to receive tax payments. So what's up, Farshad? Thanks for that, man. Appreciate it. Man, you going to the gym. That's awesome. Yeah, definitely. I appreciate that as well. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. Glad that you tuned in. Glad for the time taken and the donation offered here. So hopefully I don't ruin your workout as you start working out. So let's see. Berthold Jipping. Let's see. Criminals are stupid. Why use traceable BTC when they can use privacy coins like Monero? And that's a good point too. So they go to what they know. No one said that they're intelligent. And it would be interesting to see what happens on the privacy space in that regard, to see what kind of traction they can take with a Monero or anything like that, and how, the big company or the big government out there, tracks them down in the big organization. So, that's, I like what Devon's saying. There's a good chance of that. But once you try to ban them, then they go underground. Once they're underground, then there's going to be an underground currency at that point. But again, it's not the tool, it's the intent of the individual. Those individuals will be tracked and found. You can't hide just because that's how you're, moving money. The criminal intent is still there. And so, there's, still that. So now going back into government and taking all of this, what we're thinking about and why it's so important, for us to help educate those that are in office on the realities of the digital asset space. Now, I then look at one point to bring up, you wonder in certain countries, certain circumstances, certain political groups, why they may be against digital assets from mainstream adoption. And if you think about some of the concern that those individuals might have within a political class that accepts bribes and makes large financial gains from hidden deals with large lobbying groups, the same politicians who get huge amounts of money transferred to them in quasi book deals written by ghostwriters in order to enrich that individual and in order to gain their compliance on specific issues. So that is something that, DNI, I think if you throw that, I think it's an interesting point, to really consider, is that from a political perspective, I think it's crazy, if you look at the way you can manipulate the politicians into certain action through these bribes, and it'll be interesting to see also, what would happen from the digital asset space, with these politicians, whether they're in the United States or elsewhere. I just think it's something that, we need to dig down into, investigate a little bit further as to why some of them might be against it. Obviously, you look at like the Shermanator, who receives, huge, lobbying payments from these credit card processing companies. So so that's that's obviously where we're at on that. So let me sorry, just kind of looking at the notes here. Let me see what we got. Any additional feedback, comment? Devon, let's see. If you try to encase them to a legit coin, the exchange will not be able to. So you'd be stuck with them. Criminals won't be able to launder them like they can cash. Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. And that's the whole intent of the criminal, is to be able to move it into spendable currency. And if it's just in a Monero form, then you still will have to have a mixer service or somebody out there that's then moving that coin over to something that's spendable. That's a great point. Yep. Yeah. So yeah, that's DNI said that. Yeah, that's exactly right. So I think those are great points. I like that. Yep, great points. So let's see here. When you off ramp to fiat, privacy coins don't help. Exactly. So I think that's definitely very, very good point. And so that's something that we need to emphasize with the political class that are making their decisions on this stuff. We definitely have to bring that as a major point. Now let's sideline over to XRP a little bit because I think this is important. XRP. Let's talk a little bit about Ripple. Now, obviously, there's a ton that we can read into the space. We see the growth. We see the potential of RippleNet. We know what Ripple is doing on the global stage. We've talked about it, many times, and we see what Brad Garlinghouse has stated regarding Xcurrent being Swift 2.0. Swift doesn't hold a candle to what RippleNet through Xcurrent offers from the banks, the financial institutions, as far as cross-border payments. XRP and RippleNet has a much bigger role in the economy in the global economy, much greater than anybody could imagine, and much greater than what Swift would ever accomplish. So Swift as a messaging platform, and that's it. Not a solution to provide liquidity, not a solution to provide the actual movement of currency. Strictly just a messaging provider. So here, what we're seeing is that through XRP, you can have a very reliable source of liquidity. It can be utilized in order to facilitate the payment remittance. It can be utilized for the exchange of all currency, fiat and digital asset. It has significant functionality to it. So from a broader perspective, regardless of the amount of time it takes, it has by far the biggest growth opportunity pretty much out of any of the digital assets, mainly because XRP being utilized for a solution like XRapid. Now right now XRapid hasn't come full on. Obviously they engaged it, obviously it's active, but here's some thoughts. Then I want to look at something that recently came out, an article that came out, and so here's my point. Obviously things are happening. Banks' adoption of RippleNet as a solution, currently utilizing Xcurrent. Obviously, we can look at it in terms of it's kind of exploding, the adoption. We're seeing more and more financial institutions that are being onboarded. And big financial institutions like SAB, out of Saudi Arabia. We have RIA Money Transfer, which is the world's second largest service provider of remittance payments, came on board utilizing RippleNet. Now, one of the biggest unknown variables is when will XRapid be engaged by these banks. Now, I firmly believe that there's specific criteria in terms of volume of in terms of currency movement potential that RippleNet is probably waiting for in order to, mass migrate, groups of banks into XRapid. Brad Kimes talks about sandboxing, and I believe that when they rolled out XRapid, obviously it was tested prior to. Once you put it into real life utility, obviously you can't automatically have everybody turn on at the same time, with the potential of shutting down this software, a software program or whatever it might be. You need to, ramp people up slowly into that program to still work out any potential bugs that there might be that won't be and won't receive a hyper focus on. So I believe that, in order for XRapid to roll out in earnest, we need to, again, see specific volume of activity by a specific number of banks happen prior to. I have no idea what that is. It's just a conjecture, at this point. So we really have to look and say, what is it that is it, or what is it, or how, are they going to put XRapid into the mainstream use, and again, from my perspective. So now with all of this, there's some great things that are happening. We see that Brad Garlinghouse was sitting down with the heads, the kind of a who's who in the world of finance, sitting down with Christine Lagarde of the IMF. So many YouTube streamers and videos have focused in on that specific meeting. But again, the intent, those organizations would not sit with Brad Garlinghouse, wouldn't sit with the Ripple Corporation if there wasn't a bigger picture, and if there wasn't an intent, of utilizing the Ripple solution to a fuller extent. If all it is a Swift 2.0, that's great. They're going to compete head to head with each other. They might show up at trade shows, but is it Swift 2.0 that is stimulating? Is it Swift 2.0 that's getting everybody excited about their solution? Or is it XRapid? Is it their XVIA API solution? Is it the fact that they can provide global liquidity and it's unparalleled. So also considering the fact that through XRapid, or through XRP, and through Ripple, I should say, through the Ripple multi-hop solution, there's so much potential overall, and I think that is what the big financial wizards globally are focused in on, and why they're excited about what Ripple is doing with RippleNet. So I believe there's great things to come. Obviously, there's a ton of excitement in this space, but I also believe, and this article came out, and I read through this article. I said, what, it's important to talk about it. We should look and emphasize. Farshad, man, thanks for that. Unexpected, man. Gives me motivation to, every time I get something, from the community, just gives me motivation to give back to the community as well. So I appreciate that, man. So this was an article again. This was SCB Thailand taps Ripple for blockchain payments. The reason why I bring this up is because this is already old news from back in September of 18. However, there were some tweets that were coming out from SCB as a response to somebody's questioning. So then there's a whole article here written about this. And really the question was, would you be using XRP? The response from SCB Thailand was, we will be using blockchain technology for Ripple, but as for XRP, you may have to wait for further announcement. Now, we already know that if these banks are engaged in using Xcurrent through Ripple, at some point they're going to turn on the XRapid solution when it's ready and when they're ready. XRapid will happen. Now, why, they write this entire article about this. Third biggest Thai bank teases tantalizing news for Ripple XRP bulls. But they didn't tease the tantalizing news because somebody asked them the question and they were responding to somebody's question. Which is great that they responded to the question, but again, it's really, common sense that we will see, banks move into a solution that's A, going to save them money, and B, is going to provide a more seamless transfer of funding. If it's going to make their life better and less expensive and overall faster, then they're going to do it. And so if they're already adopting into that solution, obviously if they don't want to move into RippleNet, there's nothing you can do that's going to get a bank to use XRapid, if they're on the JP Morgan money transfer solution, or if they're fully embedded with Swift and they never move over to RippleNet, they're not going to use XRapid. But if they're using the RippleNet solution and they're using XCurrent, there's a high probability chance that they're going to move over to XRapid. The fact that people, are trying to read into every little line and then putting up and I get it, you need to get people to read the articles, but, to me, that's just kind of an overreach of the article because, again, they didn't use tantalizing news. There was no utility of tantalizing news. They weren't teasing it. They were merely responding. So again, my point with this is there's enough excitement in the space with reality, with real news of what's happening. We don't have to, try to dig in and put words into a representative's mouth of their financial institution when it really isn't there yet. And that wasn't the full intent of how that happened. As exciting as that response is, that could have been the response. Someone asked a great question and here's their amazing response. That's just my thought process on it. So let's get into multi-hop. Now, I think it's important, that all of us on, there's 40 plus people that have been on and off this stream this morning. I think it's important that as early adopters, as content providers, as content participants, it's very, very important that we stay informed on key aspects of the solutions that we're backing. Just like the research that you might do prior to buying a stock. If you anticipate, man, Farshad, what's up, man? Really appreciate that. So, man, 3 of them, man, that's crazy, man. So, so really, trying to emphasize and focus in, if you're going to invest in stock, if you're looking for a long-term hold in stock, you're not just going to go down, the list and say, blind, I'm going to pick this stock and that's the one I'm going to hold for the next 10 years. That doesn't make any sense. If you're going to buy and hold, if you're going to invest in a stock, and I'm not saying that XRP is a stock, obviously not as a digital asset. It's not a stock in Ripple in any stretch of the imagination, but as a comparison in terms of an investment thought process and investment strategy, it's very important that we understand the full utility as well. So obviously you can dig in and say and look at Bitcoin, and there's a lot of opinions back and forth on whether or not Bitcoin is a long-term hold, whether it truly is a store of value, et cetera, et cetera. In the digital currency world, Bitcoin is a store of value. That's just the reality of it right now. Whether that goes away in the near future, we'll find out. Is LTC the silver to BTC's gold? It's holding its value at this point. It's been ramping up with the market. It's not at zero. Ethereum has a lot of utility behind it in terms of the framework that other blockchain companies have built on. But I guess with understanding the nature of what we're investing in, it's important also then to understand if Ripple is the primary vehicle at this point, or I should say the largest vehicle at this point that could potentially utilize XRP as a digital asset, it's important then for us to understand the vehicle. Just like it's important for us to understand the vehicle behind Coil or Cinnamon or the XRP tip bot, or look at the XRP ledger, understanding the dynamics of how the XRP digital asset can be utilized within these various solutions. Understanding then also how Ripple through RippleNet, factors in to the utility of XRP as well through XRapid, and understanding the significance of what RippleNet really is on the global stage. And I think all of these things factor in. They're all important. We have to stay very, very, knowledgeable about what's happening. Now, it goes a step further because as we, especially in the United States, especially if you're participating in the Grassroots initiative outreach to Congress, to our political representatives. Now, our political representatives don't necessarily just have to be in Washington, D.C. So my next initiative that I want to focus in on, outside of what we can do to help in Congress with the Token Taxonomy Act, but I believe the next initiative is an outreach to state government. So state governments are very, very important also from a normalcy perspective and a mainstream adoption perspective to see certain regulation, certain acceptance of digital asset at a state level bears a lot of significance. So we see what happened in Wyoming. We see, some of the rules that have been, passed around in Nevada. We see what happened in Ohio, where they, actually are allowing a third-party platform to be used for payment of taxes, and as well as additional acceptance of the digital asset space by the state government in Ohio, as they did in Wyoming. So that next initiative, and again, we focus in on the early adopters, the YouTube content creators, the YouTube content participants, the Twitter influencers, the Twitter influencer participants, whatever it might be, whatever the platform is, there's a community at large here of digital asset investors and digital asset blockchain enthusiasts, understanding the dynamics and significance of what this means to our future economies, whether it's in the United States or elsewhere in the world. But again, focused on the U.S. crowd here, and we do have a decent sized international viewership and participant base. So this could hold some relevancy to you as well. Not really speaking in regards to how that happens in specific countries. However, so again, it's important that we take these actions. It's important that we stay actively involved. I have a meeting coming up on Thursday that should be very, very interesting, that I'll provide some feedback on after I have that meeting. I've let a few people know about it so far. So I'm really hoping that will really allow us to get further engaged in supporting the direction that the Token Taxonomy Act goes in. I'm hoping that as a community, we'll have our voice heard to make things happen. And that's really what it's all about. Could we sit back and do nothing and hope for the best? I'm sure that we could. But the point is that we have to understand, we have to be engaged. And so many of us here, again, as early adopters and participants in this conversation, are really active in getting the word out. So that's what is critical, and this is exactly why we're going to want to call on everybody when the time comes, in the United States specifically, internationally. Again, whatever you can do to reach out to your local government, to your state government, whatever that might be. So, all right. Arlid, what is the YouTube video that you're posting up there? You know, I'm not sure what it is. It's held for review. So that'd be let me do something here real quick. Meant to keep this to an hour. I need to go through this and hang on a second. Here we go. I need to do some cleanup of some of the things that I've been working on here. So hang on a second. I'm adding a few more moderators to the channel, just to simplify. Just do something real quick, and then I'll from Brad. Okay, cool. Let me share that. Are they both the same video? Annalise, I'll do that. That's awesome. I'm not even sure if that worked there, but yeah, I'll check that out. I appreciate that, Annalise. James Malpass, hit the likes. Yeah, definitely hit the likes and show some support for the channel for sure. You know, anything you guys can do at this point. So let's hang on. Okay, let me read this here. This is a good one. Anders. Politicians in Norway say Bitcoin is only for criminals and money laundering. It's propaganda. At the same time, the head of the central bank is at the meeting with the International Monetary Fund. You like that? So this just tells me, you know, from that perspective, there's a balance, and we've talked about this before as well. I know I'm going over my hour, and you know, we might end up going maybe 15 minutes. We'll extend a little bit. Sorry about that. So I didn't mean to extend beyond the hour that I try to hold in my head. But you know, so the politicians are acting on incorrect information. We can't assume that the politicians are purposely spreading you know, misinformation. These politicians may truly believe that Bitcoin is only for criminals and money laundering. Look at the relative age of your political class, of your elected officials that are sitting in parliament, in government, in Congress, wherever they might be. And you'll see that most of them are out of touch. Just as we saw that embarrassing, I don't even know what to call it, a spectacle with the politicians questioning Facebook and everything else. And they had no clue. They have no understanding of anything as it comes to, you know, as it comes to the, man, look at, I just got the notification, RTB. Man, thank you for that. I appreciate the XRP tip bot that just came through. So that's really awesome. That's fantastic. I gotta open it up. I'm just getting some of the you know, pop-up notifications. So I'll open that up here. Let me see as we're going. Let me see if I can get that here. XRP tip bot. So anyway, yeah. So you know, we can't, and you know, again, we can't anticipate that our politicians are operating. Oh yeah, I really appreciate that. That's awesome. Now my tip bot balance is filled again, and I can start using it to tip out again. I appreciate that, RTV. That's awesome. So yeah, so where was I? All right. So again, with government. So let's go to the other part of what Anders was saying here. At the same time, the head of the central bank is. So here we have politicians that clearly don't understand what digital assets are. They're operating on misinformation. They're hyper focused on that misinformation as accurate. These are the individuals that need to be educated. On the other side of it, you have the central banks, and I guarantee at the banking level, the central banks do understand exactly what digital assets mean to this space. They understand what digital assets are going to do globally. They understand all of the you know, various dynamics of what's happening economically, and this is exactly why they're sitting down. Now, again, from a political perspective, and I'm not sure exactly how it works in Norway, but it's super important to do an outreach to these individuals. Find that individual within Parliament that you can speak to. Find that individual that's open to understanding, that's open to trying to pass through some sort of legislation, and that's where you can really begin to educate at the political level. So Andrew said the head of the central bank is at the meeting with the International Monetary Fund where Brad Garlinghouse talks about Ripple. So you have the banks get it, the government doesn't, but eventually it's all going to come together. It takes a community to move mountains. So here we are from the grassroots level in the United States. Let's say getting very active with the politicians to truly help move the legislation through Congress. Now, things you think about it from a perspective of the bill gets presented. There's a lot of other things happening politically. It's not necessarily a priority. Now all of a sudden you gravitate to one politician. You say, you know what? This is critical, and here's what's really happening out there. Here's what you need to do to get active. Here's what you as a politician need to do to get your name, stamped in history for all time, because blockchain technology, is the dynamic shift within this industry. Blockchain technology is, potentially greater than, the invent of the internet or comparable to the invent of the internet as far as what the internet has done for everybody. This is the next step. So you get a politician that wants to take part in that concept, and they're out there like Warren Davidson, Darren Soto, Tom Emmer, and there's many, many others. And then you see Gottheimer, and you see others that are understanding the significance and importance of blockchain technology for the U.S. economy, as well as what it means globally. They get it. They want to get on board. So again, on the other side, of the coin here, we still have a lot of politicians sitting in the U.S. Congress that don't understand anything when it comes to economy. Now think about, I don't know about other countries, but the majority of politicians in the United States are lawyers. What the hell does that say, for us when it goes to making decisions on finance and economics? Show me one attorney that knows about accounting and knows about finance and knows about economics. They know the hell of a lot about, the law books. I've unfortunately, been to, through a part of law school, and it was interesting. It was a lot of fun, but you didn't read or learn the reality of what's happening, and you definitely don't learn anything about finance or economics. And so there are all obviously, you have, even in the medical space, you have doctors that they don't know anything about nutrition. How in the world is it they know nothing about nutrition, right? But then you have doctors that do know about nutrition, and then you have doctors that know about economics and finance, and those that have no clue how to run a business. So it's the same thing with lawyers. Lawyers are hyper focused on their subject matter, and they don't understand finance. But yet we elect these politicians, these lawyers, to go and represent us in Congress, and then we decisions when it comes to finance and economics, and we're beating our head against the wall, thinking that these guys know what they're doing. So when it comes to the digital asset space, how do we expect these attorneys to understand the functionality of a digital asset? How do we expect these attorneys to understand the functionality of a blockchain? And how do we expect these attorneys to understand the dynamics of what digital assets mean for the economy in the U.S. and the economy at large globally, country to country. And so if they're functioning and operating based on false information or misinformation or outdated information, or they're functioning on just rumor mill, which many of them do, because they're going to rely on whatever small bit of information is dumped on their desk to read about. Then it's up to us then to educate them from a grassroots level, to let them know, look, as a constituent, this is the reality. As a constituent, I'm here to help you learn the significance and importance of blockchain technology. As a constituent, I'm here to educate you on what's happening globally with digital assets, and so that is our functionality. That's where it's important, whether we're in the United States or in Norway or in Australia or in the UK or wherever it might be. If we're in the Netherlands, there are politicians that care about this topic, and there's politicians that we can reach out to that can really have a major impact on everything that we need to happen. So I didn't even talk about multi-hop. I don't know what happened. Got sidetracked, and now we don't even have time to talk about multi-hop unless you guys are good with that. I'm trying to think time-wise. Multi-hop, we don't have to get a lot into it, but let me go back and see some feedback here. Devon, and as you watch in a couple of months, your politicians will start coming around. All of a sudden, they'll have new information to combat criminals. Agree with that. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of education. It's a matter of support, from all aspects. So let's see. No one compares to you, Miss Anna. I'm missing out on that conversation. I'll kind of let you guys go through that. Let me see. Trying to get through the Farshad, you're the man. Yes. Malpass, man, I agree with that 100%. Farshad is really amazing. I mean, constantly, showing support for content creators, just really, throwing out. It's, man, you're doing a phenomenal job. It's outstanding. Here you are, spending time, listening, supporting, contributing. There's just so much. It's really amazing. So, Malpass. So this whole community, that's why in the beginning, and now, when we talk about what needs to be done, we have the content creators, the content participants, we're all in this together. There's so many brilliant minds in these streams that, and what DNI has been contributing on his stream, and each of the participants that are here, and I really appreciate everything that you guys have, everything you guys give. It's just absolutely outstanding. It really is, really is. So all right, let's wrap this up. Maybe we'll end up doing an hour and a half. I like keeping it to an hour because then when people come back to watch again, nobody wants to sit through an hour and a half video that they can't engage in, so then you end up fast forwarding and you try to figure out where in the world did multi-hop go. Why isn't it in this video stream? It's on the thumbnail. I thought he was going to talk about multi-hop. What happened to XRP being used by banks? I guess we talked about that in the beginning. So all right, so this is let's see. I have no idea what Blue Bunny is. Is that an ice cream place? I could be mistaken. I'm not sure. Awesome. XRP Carolina. All right, that's cool, man. Appreciate your time here. I get it. All right, that's great, man. Glad you were able to spend a little bit of time on here. Aha, it is ice cream. I thought never. I don't think I've ever had Blue Bunny. Is it an ice cream place or just some ice cream that's distributed? All right, so let's look. Let me look here. Let's get into this, and then we'll wrap this up at 8. What time is it? At 9:30. How about that? I think that'll be decent. So this goes back way back, and months are like years in the digital asset space. I swear to God. Weeks are like months. Days are like, I don't know, but it's crazy. So September 28, 2018, Siam Commercial Bank pioneers RippleNet's multi-hop feature. And so obviously it was in the news again. Siam Bank is, the second largest bank over in Thailand. I believe it's one of the larger banks over in that area. So SCB, Siam Commercial Bank, utilizing and really, again, like they said, pioneering and testing the multi-hop feature. And as I got into it, I said, you know what? And I'm on the Ripple.com website to pull this up. I said, you know what? I've read about multi-hop. I studied multi-hop. And then as time goes by, all this information just gets jumbled up in my brain, you know, and I go back and I'm like, you know, I gotta figure this out. You know, I gotta figure out what, you know, everything that I learned, you know, and trying to go back and remembering every little aspect of it. But the multi-hop, I speed up the videos. I've done that before. It's great. Gail Travels. I have watched videos in double time. That's awesome. Yeah. So let's see here. All right. Okay. So multi-hop. Now let me get right down to the significance of the multi-hop and where is it? There was a little statement of why the multi-hop. And I wanted to read this because it was so important. And now I can't find this statement. This was awesome. Let's see here. Cumbersome process. No, that's not it. It was like perfect. The benefits of multi-hop. Now I can't find it. But you know, basically, you know, multi-hop is it allows these financial institutions to move money. And so let's say you have a small, you know, you have a bank, typically, you know, if they need to move money from one currency to the next, many of them, you know, aren't on, you know, the larger bank wire transfers, and don't have a pool of liquidity. They don't have the Nostro Vostro accounts. And so they're able to utilize, oh, here it is. They're able to utilize the multi-hop feature because normally they have to convert it into a U.S. currency before they can settle it in the other bank in the other currency. So here it is right here. So a lack of standard integration in ASEAN for regional cross-border payments. So this is, again, they don't have a standard. So they're not using a SWIFT. They're not using anything like that, you know, because there's without that standard of integration for movement of money, even cross-border, if it's going from you know, Thailand to Singapore or Malaysia or wherever it might be going, but it becomes very important because they have these expensive workarounds, and so if they're using, so let me just read this statement here because it really simplifies the problem. A lack of standard integration in ASEAN for regional cross-border payments currently requires expensive workarounds. Neighboring countries relying on the correspondent bank system have to first convert currency into US dollars, then settle across multiple correspondent banks before finally being exchanged to the currency used at the beneficiary institution. So why is that significant and why is that expensive and why is that slow? Is because they don't have the Nostro Vostro accounts. They don't have the liquidity sitting around the world in these different banks to easily you know, provide the remittance solutions. And it's typically, you know, not, again, because of the lack of a standard of integration, they're all these little, let's call them JPM silos, so to speak. And maybe that's an easy way to look at it. It could be not 100% accurate. But you know, in order for them now to move currency, so their customer comes into their bank branch, they don't have the big global access. Someone comes into their bank branch, they're like, all right, now we got to figure out how to change our local currency because you're sending it somewhere else. So let's buy dollars, let's exchange that to, and they do that multiple times. They finally get to the bank of the recipient, and imagine the cost. So this cumbersome process requires numerous fees, including 2 sets of foreign exchanges. Because remember, in that, you know, the normal activity is to exchange into U.S. dollar currency, and then from U.S. dollar currency to the next currency. So there's 2 exchanges going on. As a result, there's little to no support for the low value payments that small to medium enterprises and remitters need to make. And now this goes back to the conversation that we've had a couple times on allowing a balancing of the global, of access to the global market, meaning allowing these smaller entities to participate, you know, in exchange through the digital asset marketplace, being able to actually bank, because here, they can't, because moving smaller amounts of money, it's too expensive for them to send money through these typical channels that they're trying to use, which is losing money in the conversion process into dollars, losing money in the conversion process out of dollars, losing money in the transaction. All of that, hits their bottom line and gets to a point where they can't afford to do that. So then their area of influence for businesses shrinks down considerably into their microcosm of people that they can touch and see, and it's much more difficult financially speaking for them to do business outside because of the way the payment structure is set up with these smaller banks that they have access to. They don't have a Bank of America branch in some of these smaller areas. So now, the significance of the multi-hop feature that any banking institution can connect to, right? Because now it's easy for them to connect. It's inexpensive for them to connect through the RippleNet solutions, through multi-hop. If they were to utilize the Xcurrent platform, if they're to utilize XRP, but through multi-hop specifically, these financial institutions can then, and this, let me read from here because it's a perfect statement. This is on Ripple's website. You guys can find it, but I think it's so critical to talk about this. With multi-hop, financial institutions can connect directly to SCB, to the Siam Bank, right? So, which can then settle and pay out across the region without exchanging currencies multiple times and adding heavy fees. So now they go through multi-hop, they put their currency in once, and it automatically, but through the multi-hop feature, will then be able to transfer those finances, again, without losing money in the exchange rates, without losing money in all the fees that they typically will have to pay, which makes it next to impossible for them to participate in that, participate economically or in trade, so to speak. So, sorry, I completely lost out on the chats here, so I'll get back to it in a minute. Sorry, I appreciate that, RTB, again. That's great. All right, let's jump over here. So with multi-hop, Farshad, man, if you're still on, man, thank you for everything. Have a great weekend. Happy Memorial Day. We'll check you out later. So with multi-hop, again, this is direct. They are able to directly connect, and I think this is significant as we go back and really look at it. Directly connect to SCB. SCB, as they're the ones that are pioneering the multi-hop feature for these Asian-based smaller banks. Now, the benefits of multi-hop. Let me just read it here. This is good. So the benefits of multi-hop go well beyond the financial institutions themselves. So this is what we're talking about. Now the customers of RippleNet institutions, including remitters and SMEs, will see their payments settle faster, cheaper, and more transparently. SMEs are estimated to be responsible for up to 60% of employment in developing worlds, but that number is thought to be as high as 70%. So it is very significant. Again, RippleNet is providing a solution to settle payments faster, obviously within seconds. It's cheaper, we know that, and it's transparent. Right now, through their process, free multi-hop, using Swift, whatever the solution might be, there's a clear lack of transparency. It's obviously expensive, and obviously, it's not a good method of moving money any longer. Multi-hop, again, is a feature, and I didn't really want to dig into the technical part of it. I wanted to highlight this because I thought that these two paragraphs, these two statements, using the Siam Commercial Bank as an example, I believe it. It really makes sense. It definitely makes sense. And here, again, focusing on, the settlement of payments. So we want to make it easy, transparent, and cheap utilizing multi-hap allowed SCB, Siam Commercial Bank, to do that. So that's awesome. You know, a one-to-one connection. So here, so the to me it's amazing, right? It's just amazing to be able to have these kind of solutions to help banks and to help people in these regions have the ability to now participate in the larger economy. So, Chip, XRP Minute, what's up, man? Good morning. It is late, man. It's almost 9:30. My dogs, we have a dog house guest that came over yesterday that we have for 3 days, and he was barking at 4 o'clock in the morning. Now, we watched Rain last night until about midnight. Rain was absolutely awesome last night. That was a really engaging conversation, and we talked a lot about unions and etc. And so there's so much going on in each one of these streams. We get a little bit of a different spin on the topic. We're getting to see and learn and understand the various aspects from the topic. We're learning from each other. There's such an amazing engagement here. Crypto Hutch, all the way from Tampa, Florida. What's going on? Good to see you here. We've got people from Florida, Texas. I'm not sure if we had anyone from California. We had North Carolina. We've got Maryland. We've got pretty much all over, Australia, Thailand, Ireland, UK, so Norway. So it's awesome. Second largest bank, total assets, $81.4 billion in the Siam Commercial Bank. Tavkar, is that you were talking about that bank? So that's awesome. Fantastic. Here we are, Georgia, Malpass up in Georgia. Awesome. Gunaholic also in Tampa. Fantastic. Okay, great. Thanks, Tavkar. Thanks for that. That's impressive. That's a decent sized bank. And really to wrap all of this up and sum it up from what we were talking about in the beginning, really focused and understanding the entity that's utilizing the solution that will, that has the solution of XRP, and understanding what Ripple and RippleNet, can do, and the types of banks that they're bringing on board is just unbelievable. So we're seeing a major transition in the world, and we're seeing organizations really gravitating towards blockchain and gravitating towards what is going to happen within the digital asset space, and we're just seeing the beginning. So Chicago, the Gale Travels, love Chicago, man. Every time I go there, Dubliners is on my list, and Gibson's Steakhouse is on my list. Go there every time, typically in Chicago once a year. And those are my two stops. I love those two places. And then Fado. I love going to Fado also. So anyhow, really appreciate everybody for being on. This was an hour-and-a-half stream, 30 minutes longer than anticipated. Important, engaging conversation, important topic, important things happening from a political perspective that we're all going to have to really be on top of and aware of. Next week, Saturday, I will be bringing some, or it might even be Thursday, not Thursday, but Saturday. Yeah, definitely by Saturday, I'm going to have some really interesting information to share on what's happening with some of the participants of the Token Taxonomy Act. So look out for that, and maybe we'll spend Saturday's conversation mostly on that. Boca, I have no idea where Boca is, Chip. XRP Minute. So anyhow, again, thanks all for being on. Thanks for spending the time. Farshad, if you listen back in, thanks for your contribution. RTB, thanks for your contribution. Really appreciate all of that. It's fantastic. And without further ado, I'm going to sign off. Do it the opposite. But anyhow, everybody have a phenomenal day. Have a great Memorial Day weekend for those in the U.S. If we don't have a stream between now and Monday evening. So I do still plan on being on Monday evening. And with that, Monday, 9 p.m., we've got DNI till 9 to 10. 10 p.m. I stream Mondays and Wednesdays. DNI streams Monday through Friday at 9 p.m. Chip XRP Minute is on at 10 p.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays. And Auburn Rain on Fridays at 10 p.m. And then obviously you guys can join me with your cup of coffee, with your Guinness, with your Jameson whiskey, whatever your favorite drink might be, depending on what part of the world you're in on Saturday mornings. So again, appreciate everybody. Look forward to seeing you on the next stream. And until that time, keep on hodling your crypto.